Wenstrup. I'm a congressman from Ohio, a physician, surgeon, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the GOP Doctors Caucus in Washington. I'm joined today by some of my colleagues, Dr. Larry Bucshon, Dr. Greg Murphy, Buddy Carter, a pharmacist, and Rick Crawford, who serves on Intelligence Committee with me as well. And we came here today to really approach things on the border from the health and national security and intelligence standpoint, and bringing our expertise to the equation. And we came to see the crisis here at the southern border, which is immense, and we wanted to see what's happening on the ground, and we certainly got an eyeful today. You know, we wanted to consider what policies, whether it's affecting our national security, our national health security, what policies have led to this change, that led to this surge and to the crisis that's developed here. So I am a physician. I served in Iraq. I spent a year as chief of surgery at Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, where we were in charge of detainee health care. And those are difficult medical missions. And I've certainly been in some tough environments, but this is painful and difficult to see what we're seeing here today, especially as it involves so many children. And I want to commend the Custom and Border Patrol for the fine work that they are doing and attempting to do. And they are working tirelessly, but their mission has clearly changed in so many ways. And there are many policies that have been making their jobs seem almost impossible to them. And what we are seeing today in many ways is very unsafe and actually very inhumane, even though many are trying. And I do want to again thank Customs and Border Patrol for their fine work, doing what they can. I'm proud of what they are doing. We do encourage the President and the Vice President to come down and see what their policies have created and the human crisis that is taking place on the border. We know that the Border Patrol prepared for this once President Biden was elected president. Well, the cartels also prepared for this. And it's a game that they're winning, unfortunately. Our Border Patrol is doing all that they can. It's a humanitarian crisis that we haven't seen before, where they're supposed to hold people for 72 hours. Sometimes they're holding them for up to 20 days. We see a facility that's supposed to hold 250 people, and right now it's holding 3,500. We see facilities that are supposed to hold 33 people, and they're holding over 400 people. When I say 33, when I say 250, that's to comply with COVID standards that we're supposed to be engaging on. So we are seeing everybody treated well as best they possibly can. They're in these facilities. They have masks. They have clean clothes. They have the food that they need. It seems in many ways these policies were put in not realizing the responsibilities that HHS was going to have to undergo. We see a brand new facility that's going to house and take care of a lot of children. And we applaud that, but why are we here at all? We are one of the most philanthropic nations the world has ever seen. And we like to help people. We've always done that as a country. But right now, unfortunately, we're helping evildoers. The real winners in all of this are the cartels and those that are facilitating this whole process. And they know what they're doing, and they respond to our policies so that it can work for them. So we have to fix unworkable policies. We need to know who and what enters our country. That's always been the standard for our health and for our national security. Let's make America the winners in all this, not those on the side of evil. Let's finish the wall. Let's lead on fixing this crisis. Let's ask our President and Vice President, President Biden, Vice President Harris, to come down here and see what is actually happening, to put it in their eyes, the human beings that are being affected. But let's also work towards a legal immigration system that works for new Americans and for all Americans. Now, at this point, I'd like to invite my colleague to the podium, Dr. Larry Bucshon. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad. And it's great to be here. This is the second time I've been down to the border. I was here a couple of years ago, primarily as a physician. I'm from southern Indiana, and I was a cardiovascular and thoracic surgeon prior to being in Congress. And all the things that Congressman Wenstrup just mentioned are critically important. What we're seeing is a difference today than what I saw 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I saw unaccompanied minors, but the surge of unaccompanied minors, family units, and others crossing the border is unmistakable. And it's very clear why. Because on January 20th, we inaugurated a new president, and they instituted policies that do not work. And this is a humanitarian crisis, and I want to focus on that. You know, I have 4 children, and my heart breaks for all of these young people, the young children who are here unaccompanied or with their family members in large numbers. As Brad mentioned, places that were supposed to hold 35 people because of COVID restrictions have 350 or 400 children in their facilities. And it's just unacceptable, and it's common sense why this has happened. So I also would encourage the President, President Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris to come down to the border and actually talk to the border agents and see the crisis that we have here on the southwest border. It's real, it's human. These are not just numbers on a page, these are people. Again, I don't want to say my heart breaks for all of them, but the policies of this administration are why they feel like they should come. And the last thing I'll say is the cartels are making tens of millions of dollars on this. You cannot get to the U.S.-Mexico border without paying the toll from the cartels. And if you don't pay, you can't come. And the last thing is about the cartels, it's about drugs also. They'll flood the border with people in one area, and then they'll run drugs across the border in another. So again, President Biden, Vice President Harris, please come to the border, talk to the agents, see this humanitarian crisis, and let's reinstitute policies that actually works, that it discourages people from coming and creates this type of humanitarian crisis. With that, I'll introduce Dr. Greg Murphy.
Thank you, Larry. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Greg Murphy, I've been a surgeon for close to 30 years, and actually even longer than that. Worked overseas in some really desperate conditions in India, Africa, Haiti, and Central America. I've seen very, very difficult places. I've seen very, very difficult conditions with people. And what we witness today is something that should not be happening in our country. Consequences occur when policies change. There's a causal relationship what happens in medicine. And what happened is our nation's policies were changed where no longer were individuals were kept in Mexico when they wanted to come across the border. They were allowed to flood in. So what happens? Consequences occurred now that people are flooding the border. So I'm talking about 2 things. One is vaccinations. The Customs Patrol folks are doing a Herculean job in trying to take care of the individuals, trying to see what's going on during this epidemic, during this COVID crisis, that so many individuals are coming across our border. I really would invite Dr. Fauci, who has been a physician just like I am, who's been leading this crisis, actually to come down and comment upon some of the conditions that we're seeing here. The Border Patrol people are doing the very best they can. But COVID is real, it's not gone away, and it sure has not gone away here at the border. The folks are doing their best to look at other diseases, rabies, chickenpox, etc., and trying to process these individuals. But what's happened? What's happened because of the policies in Washington, D.C., the cartels have adapted. They know now that they can flood the border with folks that want to come here illegally, because they will be taking all the patrol officers away from their normal patrols of national security and then allow the drugs to flow in, millions and millions of dollars coming every day now onto the streets of America. And I would ask Vice President Kamala Harris, who has been put in charge of this crisis now 2 weeks plus, to actually come to the border and see what's going on, see what their policies have done to America, and see what the policies have done to the poor people here, especially the children at the border. I thank you. I want to introduce an esteemed colleague, Dr. Buddy Carter.
Thanks, Dr. Murphy, and thank you, everyone. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the CBP agents and all the fine work that they're doing. Folks, when I came down here, I knew we had a crisis, but I didn't realize we got a disaster, and it is a disaster. You know, elections have consequences, and policies have consequences. And what we're seeing now are the consequences of the policies that this administration has instigated and that they have implemented. That is something that we all need to be concerned about. You've heard the figures. I mean, we went to a facility that has a capacity of 250 and has today 3,500 people in it. And of that 3,500, 2,700 of them are children. It's had up to 5,000 people in it. And it was intended for 250. We had pods that were intended for 33 that had almost 400 people in it. And they're telling me that at times they had 600 to 700. You know all the figures. But it's more than just the figures. And it's more than just about people. Yes, that is the most important thing, no question about it. We need to be concerned. It is a humanitarian crisis, as my colleagues have said. But keep in mind what else is coming across this border. You see behind me, you see Mexico. And you think, oh, it's just the immigrants, the illegal immigrants coming through. No, it's much more than that. It is the illegal drugs. In my home state of Georgia, this week, we've had overdoses of fentanyl. You know, there's enough fentanyl that comes across this border to kill every American several times over. In 1 month, we were told that $400 million of illegal drugs came across this border. This has got to stop. Now, you can sit at home and you can think, oh, this is just about the illegal immigrants. No, it is not. It's about much more than that. It is about the cartels. It is about the drugs. You can sit at home and you can think, oh, the border, they've got a problem down there with those people coming across. It's not going to impact me. No, it is going to impact you, and it's going to impact your community because those drugs are going to end up in your community. This is serious stuff. But evidently not serious enough for the vice president to come down here and see it firsthand. It's ludicrous that she has not been down here. It's ludicrous that the president has not been down here. Folks, we got a disaster, and we need help. We need this administration to step up and do their job. I want to introduce now my colleague and good friend Rick Crawford from Arkansas.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I want to say thank you to my colleagues, all of them medical professionals. I'm the odd one out. I'm not a medical professional, but I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Winstrup. He and I both serve on the Intelligence Committee, and I can tell you that that we have a situation here on the southern border that is progressing beyond humanitarian crisis, fast approaching, as Buddy just indicated, disaster level. And that threat's being exploited by narco and human trafficking cartels who effectively control the border on the Mexico side. Our Border Patrol agents who perform a vital national security mission are being taken off the line to provide social services to a virtual tsunami of illegal immigrants. In many cases, our border is being left unprotected. The floodgates opened roughly about January 20th when President Biden vacated the demonstrably successful policies of the previous administration without any plan to address the consequences of those actions. The president could easily correct this crisis if he chose to return to the policies that were working, that incentivized our neighbors to the south to partner with us to curb irregular immigration in our hemisphere. Instead, the president has laid out the welcome mat to cartels and other national security threats who can exploit our border with impunity. In fact, just so far this year, we've already apprehended 6 special interest aliens, 2 of whom are Yemeni nationals on the U.S. terror watch list. Border construction, which is authorized by law, has been abruptly and without authorization halted by the Biden administration. The halt of that construction has not only created a security threat, it's also undermined the local levee system that protects citizens in this region. Farmers have even had to curtail irrigation as well, threatening their livelihoods. The construction halt has actually prohibited access to the river for thousands of acres that rely on the river for irrigation. It's been 16 days since Vice President Harris was dubbed the immigration czar, and she has yet to get eyes on this problem. I encourage her to come down and get her own perspective on this, and with that, I'll turn it back over to my colleague, Dr. Brad Winstrup.
Again, I want to thank all my colleagues for joining us on this mission today, if you will. You know, as I said before, this is a national security issue. This is a national healthcare security issue. The health and well-being of our citizens is paramount. Compassion is one thing, but there are those that claim compassion, yet they are doing nothing to help others. And we are seeing people down here today, particularly our Customs and Border Patrol, and they are being turned into social workers, essentially. They have been here as law enforcement, and now they're becoming social workers, and sometimes healthcare providers. That isn't fair. It isn't fair to the human beings that have under their guide for a while, and it's not fair to us as a country. Look, let's get back to being the shining city on the hill and have a legal immigration system and a pathway that is fair for all Americans and for those that seek to become Americans. And with that, I again want to thank you all for being here today, and we will get back to Washington and continue to carry the message of what needs to be done to secure our border and to make Americans safe and make Americans healthy. Thank you. Yes.
Hunter Davis with Fox News. Kind of just wondering, a lot of these delegation visits that have been happening have been largely Republican. So what's being done back in Washington to reach out to the other side of the aisle to make this a humanitarian issue like you guys have been preaching on and not a bipartisan issue like it seems like it is?
Yeah, I'm really amazed that it is a bipartisan issue. I would think that they would want to be here. If they've been supporting certain policies, then they would want to see the effects of those policies. And I'm surprised. You know, I know Henry Cuellar has been here and is very involved with what's going on here. And we do talk to our colleagues. Are you going to come to the border? Are you going to come and see what's taking place? Can we actually sit and have a discussion about best practices? You know, maybe they might find that they would agree with some of the things that were implemented under the Trump administration if they actually hear from Border Patrol about how things were working and how they were working in a humane way. That might make a difference. And there may be some things that the Biden administration has planned that they want to do that actually are good ideas. But they're not going to happen if they don't come and talk and to us and see what's going on. We want to have that bipartisan conversation. So open invitation is what I'm saying. And we're here and they're not, and you'd have to ask them why they're not.
Any indication that invitation will be accepted anytime soon?
I would hope so. I think if there's enough pressure on people sometimes, they'll tend to show up. That seems to be how things work in politics a lot of times. It's like, what are you doing about this crisis? But if you're denying that it's a crisis, if you're saying that there's no problem, and you bury your head in the sand and say everything's okay, well, that's a problem. But you ask the people in these communities that are affected the most greatly by all of this on a very personal basis, they'll tell you differently. Look, there's no doubt there's parts of this country where they'll probably never be affected by this directly in many, many ways, except when it comes to maybe their taxes and things like that. This is an American issue. This isn't a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. We all came from somewhere else. Unless you're Native American, you came from somewhere else. We are all immigrants. I have the paperwork of my grandfather coming through Ellis Island. It's a beautiful thing. That's what we want for our country. This is not the way to conduct business.
Initially, are there any takeaways that you can offer, any options for to better the system? What's going on right now?
Well, if you take the system that's in place today, and I think some of my colleagues would agree, is, you know, they need more help. They need to let the Border Patrol do their job as Border Patrol agents. When you see drugs coming across the border because they're diverted by all this, that's a problem. So how can we help with that? If these policies are going to stay in place, we have to do something more to secure our border. But maybe we take a look at our policies and say that doesn't seem to be working very well.
Will you be for the asylum seekers to reach out to the ports of entry and to, in a way, curtail the cartels instead of having to cross illegally to the bridge?
Say that again.
Like, would you be for your colleagues for asylum seekers to go up into the ports of entry instead of relying on the cartels to cross them over to the bridge?
Oh, that's always been the method. When you leave one country, you go to the nearest country and go seek asylum through that country with the U.S. Embassy or consulate, or come to a port of entry. You know, I think that most people that want to come to this country want to come to this country because it's a country that has traditionally been about law and order and about safety and security and opportunity. And if we're going to turn ourselves into a country where law and order doesn't matter, then I'm surprised they still want to come, ultimately. But right now, they still do. There are many pockets of America that believe in law and order, and it is the shining city on the hill, and that they want to come here. And I don't blame them. But let's do it right. And if you really want to come here and become part of America, then engage in a legal process, show respect for the process, for the country that you long to be in.
Also, we've seen some of you mentioned, and the previous group earlier mentioned MPP. If it were to be retaken, how would you also make sure that the people are in better living conditions than they were in this last MPP program? Because as you mentioned, there's overwhelming people in the pods, but we also had overwhelming people living in tents out in the open.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, defecating in the river. It was terrible living conditions also. So how would you also make sure that people in that program are living in a humane way?
Well, we would hope for that, and we do try to add to that from this side of the river, if you will. And we haven't been over there to see that, but that's a valid point to be made. But I understand that, but maybe the host country can participate as well. You know, look, the numbers are overwhelming. So you may have had a very good facility, but when the facility is only supposed to hold, like here, 250, and now you're putting in thousands, it's very difficult to maintain all that. But they're doing a heck of a job here, all that considered, but they're not adhering to COVID CDC guidelines because they have no choice.
Lastly here for me, is Congress working on any sort of protection for the finances of these states that are dealing with this border crisis? I know Attorney General Ken Paxton here in Texas announced nearly $900 million a year is spent on immigration in just Texas alone. Anything Congress is working to do to better protect these states from a federal level?
I think Washington needs to be aware of what's taking place here in Texas. You know, because of the policies that are in place and what is taking place, we have tremendous gaps in what the Border Patrol is supposed to do, which is to protect us from drugs and arms coming across the border and illegal entry, right? No matter what country they're from. And so it's been impressive. We did get a brief on all that Texas is doing through the Texas Department of Public Safety as well as with the National Guard. And that's a heavy lift for what is an American problem. So I think it should be discussed, and I think they're right to ask Washington to participate in that.
Do you know any figure numbers of how much has been spent to date?
I don't know that offhand, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Question for you. Christmas operation, Channel 5 agency affiliate here. If we can talk about short-term solutions, because we have to wait till the day when Republicans and Democrats get together. Who knows when that's going to happen? You know, short-term, you may have seen the photos, you may have gone to the detention center itself. You see how crowded it is, and one of the things that the agencies are pointing out, CBP and HHS, are saying we don't have enough space currently. So is there anything in the short term that we can do in the next coming days or weeks to expand that space?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's being done, actually. If you look at the tents that are being erected, and if you've been in them, if you have a chance to get in them, I hope you see that they're really pretty nice, actually. And I see that people in there are comfortable. They're seating comfortably. They're going through a process. They're, like I said, they're being fed. They're being given clean clothes every day. So the effort is being made. The problem is that the policies were implemented that brought this on. The cartels saw the policies and said, well, we know how to take care of that, and we're going to start bringing more young people in, more children in, and now we've got them. But what we didn't plan for, at least as far as the logistics of that, is how do we house all these people and process them appropriately.
Yeah, well,
so it is taking place, it's just slow. And I'm sorry, we got to get to the airport. So she's giving me a heads up back there. Thank you. But I wish you all had more opportunities to go in and see what is taking place. I'm sure.
so maybe I'll see you later.